Hello, fellow ink drinkers, and welcome back to the Blind Girls Book Talk podcast. My name is Aria.
And I'm Belle.
And we are two legally blind sisters who love reading and love books. And so what we've done is we've created this show in order to talk about it. And we talk about what we love about books, what we wish we could change, all of that kind of stuff. This show is a variety show, so we cover a wide array of bookish content, and that can range from bad retellings of stories, book-to-movie adaptation comparisons, buddy reads, bookish challenges. Like I said, the list goes on. But today what we're doing is we're actually trying something that's a little bit different from what we normally do. And that is we are going to do a bit of an author talk. So how this came about is Belle and I were talking one night, as we do often, and we were thinking that it would be pretty neat to talk about, some of the older classic authors.
Because they're nuts.
Yes, because things that happened in their life are a bit crazy.
They're nuts.
There are some things that I thought, like in certain cases, I thought I had heard XYZ, and just talking about that and learning more about these authors' lives and that kind of thing. So if you do like this, let us know. And if you have any suggestions for authors you want us to cover, let us know, because we have a list, but we are always willing to add to it. So today, the author we're going to actually be talking about is Edgar Allan Poe, because who better than the king of Gothic literature himself?
Actually, he's not.
Who is then?
Well, technically, if we're going by the king of Gothic literature, it's the man who wrote The Monk. Technically.
No, because here's my thing.
Technically, no, don't give me that. Technically, actually, the king of Gothic literature is the guy who wrote Castle of Otranto. I lied. Technically, it's him. I know this. I took a course on Gothic literature. Fight me.
Okay, well, I call Poe the king because, quite frankly...
Okay, I'll give you this. He's the king of American Gothic literature. I'll give you that. I'm not giving you the king of Gothic literature because Gothic literature started with Castle of Otranto, which is actually a really cool book. It actually is like Hamlet, just freaky.
Fantastic. So, yeah, Poe did a lot when it comes to Gothic literature. He wrote a lot.
Horror short stories.
Poems. He did it all.
Well, isn't he like most known, though, for like kind of coining short stories?
I think so.
I think I learned that. I don't know.
I think so. It's probably in your research.
Who knows?
All right. So how we're going to do this is Belle is going to kind of go through some things about his life, things that we're interested in. We're going to talk about it more, and we just kind of go from there. So take it away, Belle.
So on January 19th, 1809, Edgar Poe was born to Elizabeth Arnold Poe and David Poe Jr., both actors. Elizabeth, his mom, was an English-born actress. His father was an actor from Baltimore. However, tragedy started to strike early for Poe.
Of course it did.
Because it's Poe.
Of course it did. I will say before she goes on, the one recurring theme from Poe's life is he had a huge rain cloud over his head all the time, and everything bad just kind of followed him.
Yeah, pretty much. So in 1811, his mom died, and he was taken into the home of John Allen, a Richmond merchant, and his childless wife. I believe it's suspected Allen was Poe's godfather or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he was later then taken to Scotland and England from 1815 to 1820, where he was given a classical education, which was then continued in Richmond. And then for 11 months in 1826, he attended the University of Virginia. However, he was a gambler. So due to his losses at the university, his guardian refused to let him continue and pulled Poe out.
Well, see, and wasn't it a thing that his guardian wasn't really giving him money, so that's why he was gambling all the time?
Yeah, apparently John Allen was stingy, but who knows? It was Poe.
This is true.
He returned to Richmond to find that his sweetheart was already engaged to someone else.
Fun.
So he went to Boston, where in 1827 he published a pamphlet of youthful Byronic poems entitled Tamerlane and Other Poems.
Yeah, and I've never heard of this before. Have you?
I've heard of it, but wasn't his first book something to do with fishing or something?
That I don't remember. That I don't know.
I forget if it was him or not.
Because I know some of the research was very spotty.
Yeah, it's
which is kind of sad considering how much this man went through in his life, and then for the research to not be able to give you much information, it's just doubly upsetting.
Yeah. So then he was in poverty, of course. So it forced him to join the army, where he went under the name Edgar A. Perry.
Okay.
But once his foster mother died, John Allen purchased his release from the army and then helped him get appointed to the U.S. Military Academy at West Point.
But what was the point? Do you know what the point of that was?
I don't know, because I believe he was in active duty. So because of the death of his foster mother, John Allen was just yeah, no, I'm not dealing with this. You're coming closer to home, my friend.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, I thought that was weird too, but I was just it's fine. Before going, Poe published a new volume at Baltimore. I am not pronouncing it, so...
Yeah, he published again, but my thing is that I feel like he did a lot of, or is that later that he does a lot of newspaper publishing?
Give me time!
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Goodness gravy, I'm only on 1829.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
And then he wanted to be expelled from the academy, which he finally succeeded in getting expelled, when he was absent from all drills and classes for a week. It took him a week of not showing up.
Oh my gosh.
For them to be okay, yeah, you're gone. There's the door, my friend. So then, after that, he proceeded to New York, where he brought out a volume of poems, and then returned to Baltimore, where he began to write stories.
So he started a lot with poetry, and then kind of went into stories.
So then, in 1833, one story won $50 from a Baltimore weekly, and then in 1835, he was in Richmond as editor of Southern Literary Messenger.
Okay.
Which he was then made the title of critical reviewer, and then married his young cousin, Virginia Clem, who was only 13.
And at this point in time, he was in his 20s, wasn't he?
Listen, man, it gives no ages.
Wait, hold on, I'll find out. Yeah, he was in his 20s. When he married his 13-year-old cousin. And I will say, out of all the things in Poe's life, that is the one thing where we definitely hardcore judge Poe. But
okay,
it was a different time.
It was a different time. I'm not going to judge him because it was a different time. I don't condone this, so don't
marry your cousin.
Words. Yeah, don't do that.
Don't marry your underage cousin. That's bad.
Yeah, don't do that. However, he did love her.
He did.
He was obsessed with her,
which is really creepy.
Yeah, but he loved her and she loved him, and listen,
it's creepy looking at it in today's lens.
Yes, and today's lens, it's creepy. In 1835, it was romantic.
We're gonna go with creepy.
Yeah, sure.
All right, what's next?
He was then dismissed from his job in Richmond for drinking.
Yeah.
And then went to New York City. And then when in New York, in 1838, he published a long prose narrative titled The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym.
I guess.
And then in 1839, he became editor of Burton's Gentleman's Magazine in Philadelphia. There was a contract for a monthly feature stimulated him to write William Wilson and the Fall of the House of Usher.
Okay, so
stories of the supernatural and horror.
Yeah, Fall of the House of Usher is the first thing that we've come across that I'm just that name's familiar.
Then later in 1839, Poe's Tale of the Grotesque and Arabesque appeared, dated 1840. You should know that one.
Yeah, because isn't that the one... Oh, help me out here.
I forget what's all in it, but it has a lot of his famous stuff.
I was going to say...
I believe there's a copy of it on that bookshelf behind you.
Let me see.
He then resigned from the magazine in about June of 1840, but returned in 1841 to edit its successor, Graham's Ladies and Gentlemen's Magazine, where he printed Murders of Rue Morgue. It's the first detective story that he wrote, apparently.
Wait. When did Poe write a detective story?
That was my same thing.
Because the stuff that I know from Poe is, The Raven, Hop Frog, The Fall of the House of Usher,
Pit and the Pendulum, Telltale Heart.
Yeah.
Anyway.
There's a lot.
Yeah, moving on. In 1843, another of his stories won a $100 prize from the Philadelphia Dollar newspaper, which gave him great publicity. And then in 1844, he returned to New York, where he wrote The Balloon Hoax for the Sun and became sub-editor for the New York Mirror. In the New York Mirror of January 29th, 1845, appeared Advance Sheets from the American Review, his most famous poem, The Raven, which gave him national fame at once.
Okay, so this is then when he kind of wrote the thing that everybody knows him for.
Yes. Also, Baltimore Ravens, named after Poe, the Raven, but he didn't write it in Baltimore.
Which is funny.
Which I think is really funny. He wrote it in New York. It was published in a New York newspaper.
But I think the reason, though, why is because...
He's buried there. He's born there. It's fine. I get it. I can survive it. I just think that's funny.
All right, next.
He then became editor of the Broadway Journal, which republished most of his short stories in 1845. His The Raven and Other Poems and a selection of his tales came out in 1845. And then in 1846, Poe moved to a cottage in Fordham, where he wrote a book.
He wrote a ladies' book.
Yeah, I don't know what that
according
is.
to this, and I'm very confused by that as well.
Yeah, I ain't going there. His wife then died in January of 1847.
Poor Poe.
That did a lot to him, though.
It did. It did kind of mess him up.
The following year, he went to Providence, Rhode Island, to woo Sarah Helen Whitman, who was a poet. There was a brief engagement. Poe had a close but platonic engagements with Annie Richmond and with Sarah and Lewis, who helped him financially. He composed poetic tributes to all of them. And then in 1848, he also published the lecture, which I ain't getting into that.
That makes no sense.
I know. And then in 1849, he went south, had a wild spree in Philadelphia, but then got to Richmond, where he finally became engaged to the woman that was his sweetheart when he was younger, but then married someone else.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because she was widowed, and spent a happy summer with one or two relapses. He enjoyed the companionship of his childhood friends and an unromantic friendship with a young poet, Susan Archer Talley.
So he just became like a ladies' man.
Yeah.
Or an attempted ladies' man after his wife died.
Yeah, pretty much. Had some forebodings of death when he left Richmond for Baltimore late in September. There he died, although whether from drinking, heart failure, or other causes are still uncertain in the 21st century. He's buried in Westminster Presbyterian Churchyard in Baltimore. However, the dark and mysterious continued to follow Poe even after his death. This is my favorite thing.
Okay.
So, after his death, starting in 1930, roses and a bottle of
Cognac
would...
Cognac.
Cognac.
No,
What?
that's not how you say it.
I don't know how you say
Cognac.
it. Cognac?
I hear it in my head, but I can't say it.
Whatever. Bottle of liquor.
Okay.
Roses in a bottle of liquor would randomly appear on January 19th, his birthday.
Weird.
Although now the identity of the Poe toaster, as the man came to be known as, is now known. It will be forever remembered for, Poe will always be remembered for his haunting work. But I remember learning about, Dad told me about that, how roses and liquor would just randomly appear at his grave for years.
And he actually passed away on October 7th of 1849, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I don't understand. Like, there's so much that I'm just like, I don't understand. I don't understand. Because he did drink heavily, right?
He did, however, in some of my research, I found out that, like, he had, like, this genetic thing that, like, he only had to drink one glass of something and he would be drunk.
Okay,
like,
gotcha.
His body couldn't handle alcohol.
Gotcha.
Just how, like, my body doesn't produce a chemical for me to be able to take over-the-counter meds.
Right.
His body didn't produce something for him to be able to handle alcohol.
And
his father also had it. It was apparently genetic.
Gotcha. And there are some people that believe that that is the reason why he ended up dying, right?
Yes. People think it's either from his heavy drinking, brain contusions.
Right.
Some think that his sweetheart's brothers murdered him. Some believe it was some political stunt that was pulled that ended up killing him.
Yeah, I think the theory that I remember hearing a lot about was that it was like a voter fraud.
Yes,
he was like
the
pulled
political
into
stuff.
he was pulled into like a thing where there would be somebody who would kind of like almost kidnap you.
Yeah, and they'd force you to vote. And, like, they'd change your appearance and send you in multiple times in order to vote.
Yes.
And they'd make you vote a certain way. And
yes.
everything else.
And supposedly, like, after you voted, they gave you, like, a shot of alcohol.
Yeah.
And so they think that that might be why he ended up dying.
I think on his death certificate, I believe they contributed it to brain swelling. Like something with his brain is on his official death certificate, I believe.
Yes. I mean, again, that would make sense. All in all, just a crazy life.
Still crazy after he died.
Still crazy after he died. There's still so much speculation. And he was very depressed, you know, through a lot of his life.
Yeah, he had a lot of depression and...
Which, I mean, I know that our kind of research didn't talk a lot about it, but you're able to kind of tell some of that through today's lens, you know.
Google him on YouTube. He'll find some stuff that go deeper into that. I wasn't touching that.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't want to go too deep into that, but I did think that it's worth mentioning.
Yes, he did have that. But I always liked how roses just would magically appear.
Yeah, that's weird.
And then once like this became known, people would then stand out and watch to try to find out who it was. And it would just be a black figure.
Weird.
In a long black coat, a black hat, scarf wrapped around his face.
Weird.
And he just leave roses and a bottle of alcohol. And apparently his identity is known now. Like the guy came forward. However, I don't know if that's actually true.
Right. Yeah, because there'll be people who claim that they're the one who did it and they're really not. And maybe they are, but you kind of have to be skeptical.
I didn't want to say like, oh, it's this person for sure.
Right.
Because like I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't want to cause any issues.
Right. Well, I think that about wraps it up then about talking about Edgar Allan Poe and his life. Of course, if you like the episode, if you like what you're listening to, please consider sharing the episode with your friends. It would really help us to grow the show, and we would really appreciate it. And we do hope that you enjoyed listening to us talk about Poe and his life and, you know, his different works that he published and that sort of thing, because I definitely learned some things that I didn't know before. And then what are we going to be talking about next time?
We're talking about our Night Circus buddy read.
All right. So we will see you guys then. Bye.
Bye.